Hi everyone. Welcome back to the Barbell Baddies podcast. I am your host, NPC wellness competitor, Marisa Beltran. On this podcast, we'll be talking about fitness, bodybuilding, mindset, self-belief, and all things in between. If you're a person who is interested in going to the gym, wanting to learn more about bodybuilding, wanting to create better habits to achieve your goals through self-belief and mindset, then you're in the right place. How's everybody doing today? How has your week been? How are you feeling right now as you're listening to this? Right now, in this moment, as I'm recording this, I am feeling, well, first of all, I'm feeling real thirsty. Sorry, I had to get some water. I'm feeling good. It's been pretty productive. I went to the gym with my little brother, which was so much fun because I always felt like he was a more experienced gym goer or fitness person than me. And so he worked out with my coach and I, and it was really cool. It was really cool to see him do workouts that he said he'd never done before. And it's so funny because he is 24 years old and we were working out our hamstrings. And one of the workouts that we do to work out our hamstrings is RDLs. And he had never done RDLs before. And so when I was trying to tell him or give him some tips on what to do, one of the tips I gave him was think about pushing your butt back. And he kind of looked at me and gave me a look and was like, I've never thought about that. So it's really interesting how, unless you're a bodybuilder, even males, there are some workouts that you don't do that females do. And and not to get anybody confused, for example, RDLs are hip abductors, the ones where you're pushing out to work out your glutes and your hamstrings. I know bodybuilders do that, but it's interesting that people, or specifically people who identify as male, don't necessarily work out the hip abductor. They don't use that machine. And it's really funny because my little brother, he said that him and his friends call that the forbidden machine, which I thought was so funny. But honestly, I'm just thinking about that and it makes me laugh. So yeah, I had a really good day. I'm feeling good. Worked out with my brother and my coach, went grocery shopping. I took my really good friend out, Millie, that's my gym sis, for her birthday out. So we went and had lunch, cleaned up a little bit, took my dog to the vet, got to make sure that she gets taken care of. So right now, in this moment, as I'm recording, I feel really good. I feel really grateful. I just feel good and grateful. But to be honest, I cannot believe it's already mid-February. When I think of February, I just think of it as just a month about love, colors of pink and red, and just a loving month. So really that is the theme of today's episode. I wanted to make a post Valentine's Day episode. Just because I love Valentine's Day, and why not? And to begin, does anyone listening know where Valentine's Day comes from? I looked this up and was really surprised. So according to my 5-second Google search, and I quote, although the stories behind Saint Valentine are a bit vague, some legends say that he was a Roman priest who defied Emperor Claudius II. This emperor, Emperor Valentine, or Emperor Claudius, banned marriage so men would be more willing to go to war. Roman priest Valentine continued to marry people in secret, which resulted in Saint Valentine's brutal execution. When I first read that, I was like, damn, I honestly did not know that. And that's low-key pretty cool, but still pretty sad. But it's just still really interesting, love shall prevail even way back then. But like I said in the last episode, Valentine's Day is one of my favorite holidays. I am 27 years old, and my parents still gift me something every year. I blame my parents for always giving me that princess treatment and using any holiday to spoil each other. That is honestly my whole family's love language. We find any reason to give each other gifts. And it's funny because I was actually mentioning this to my father, and I told him how, as I was creating this episode, I learned that that's our family's love language. Like, we always give each other gifts, and I wanted to share that on the podcast. And he was so adamant that I preface that we don't go out and give each other extravagant gifts. That he wanted me to make sure to let everybody know that these gifts are not crazy expensive. Sometimes these gifts include favorite baked goods, handmade items, maybe just a picture with a letter on it. The gifts that we give each other, and honestly, even I feel like this is a general rule of thumb with gifts, it does not have to be anything expensive, even though, that's what I prefer, but no, I'm just kidding. But anyways, I know that, in general, some people hate Valentine's Day because it's viewed as a holiday that mostly couples celebrate. And it can be a day where people feel really lonely. But it can also be a day to remind yourself to fucking love and spoil yourself, even after Valentine's Day, even after a holiday passes. What I really learned after, my experience, being bitter or just upset from spending holiday single, specifically Valentine's Day, I learned after my mindset changing that Valentine's Day is a day of a yearly, monthly, or daily reminder to show love to others, but more importantly, myself. My favorite and really my absolute favorite way to show myself love is I do nothing. I literally eat and watch anime or eat and watch my favorite show. I'm usually watching anime 90-85% of the time, but lately I've been watching Love on the Spectrum. And let me get some water right now. I don't know why, but lately I've been so thirsty. So sorry if I take more pauses to drink some water. I'm just not trying to have my lips smacking throughout the whole episode because that's kind of annoying. So, when I am hydrating, just hydrate yourself. But anyways, so that's what I do. I literally watch anime or watch my favorite show. I create a day where I have no responsibilities other than, of course, walking the dogs and such, because as I mentioned in a previous episode, dogs need exercise too. And I don't want to do anything I don't want to do. I usually have a very busy schedule all the time, literally since high school. I don't know if this is in my nature just to constantly stay busy, but I have work. I have podcast content. I work out. I have cardio. I walk the dogs. I got to do homework. And this doesn't include things like adulting, keeping the house clean, doing dishes, doing laundry, car maintenance, doctor's appointments. My dog Bella has been a little sick lately, so that doesn't include, taking her to her vet appointments. So having days where I don't do anything that I don't want to do is a way that I personally show myself love. And I came across this quote, and I'm sure many people have heard this at least once before. And if you haven't, then shoot, I'm happy you heard it first on this podcast. But the quote goes like this: the key to being mentally sharp, productive, and emotionally healthy is to allow your brain time to rest. When you allow yourself time to do nothing, you give your brain a chance to process experiences, consolidate memories, and reinforce learning. So, yeah, homies, do nothing if that's what will make you feel good inside. That's honestly one of my favorite self-love practical tips. And if you have a life where you are able to like do nothing, like maybe you have a lot of passive income and you have a lot of flexible time and you want to be able to do something, then the next thing I'm recommending, and some people might hate me for this, but the next thing I recommend is doing a physical activity. And I am a bodybuilder, so of course I'm going to recommend physical movement. And I recommend, of course, lifting some heavy weights and doing like 20 to 30 minutes of cardio for that cardiovascular health. And also, real quick, I know that you need at least 150 minutes a week for your cardiovascular health in general. So I think the point is get those endorphin brain chemicals going, because that's what's going to like chemically, like in your brain, make you feel good. And I always think about, okay, like raise your hand if you have ever left the gym in a bad mood. And well, now that I think about it, I kind of take that back, because I have definitely left the gym in a bad mood. But like, to preface it, I have gone in like already in a bad mood, but I have left with like a less of like a crappy attitude. So going in, I might have not been like some positive like Paulina, but even though I'm leaving still feeling pretty shitty, I'm feeling a little bit better. So technically, I do walk out like feeling pretty crappy, but not as crappy as I did when I walked in. Like, I still essentially feel better. And I always think about how the most crappy workout you can have is one that didn't happen at all. So at least if I'm in there, like, it helps even just a little bit. But in general, I would recommend to just move your body. I have been wanting to do Zumba classes for a long time, so I feel like even then Zumba classes are a great example. And I honestly first got introduced to Zumba when I was like 6 years old. My mom had all the Zumba videos on DVD, and she would do them with herself or with her friends. And Mommy, if you're listening to this, I want you to know that I specifically remember, people coming over our house, us going over their house, even going to like, there's like some recreational gym we used to go to. And I just remember being on the sidelines, like being behind them, just doing all the movements, getting my own little like dance and sweat on at 6 years old. But, that's another way to get some movement in. And if you are a person where you're really busy and you just don't have the time, let's say you have only like 20, 30 minutes and maybe you're just like, I can't do Zumba like that. I have a really like tight knit area. I don't have the space to be like moving my arms and legs around. Maybe take just like a 20 to 30 minute walk. Even if you only have 15 minutes or less, use it to your advantage. That is still moving your body. And I think it is very beneficial for all of us to get fresh air that our body probably needed. I know that there's so many of us that work indoors. I know there are a lot of people that work from home. You live at home, so you're just stuck at home all day, and you're probably going to need that fresh air. But I even think about the people that, like myself, like even though I don't work from home, I'm still working in another area that's in a building. Like, I'm not outside. Like, my outside time only comes from when I'm taking out my dogs or when I'm walking to my car. So even just taking like a 20, 15, 30 minute walk outside, I think is beneficial for all of us. But honestly, like, loving yourself can be more than just movement. Self-love can come in so many different ways. And let me hydrate real quick. I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I'm an ambassador for this workout clothing brand called Savage Babe Collection. And all the ambassadors for this workout clothing brand are in a group chat. And during Valentine's Day in the chat, someone asked what we all do for like self-love and self-care. And so many people were listing different things. And as I'm reading them, there were so many things that, for one, I had never thought of. For two, I've never heard of. And for three, like, they were just great reminders. I just thought they were like really sweet, and I wanted to share them with all of you. And also, shameless plug, use code Marisa, all capital letters, MARISA, for 15% off. But see, these are some of the things that everyone listed. So in the chat, there was dance, play with their kids. There was cook, and see, like, I love this one. I feel like this is a form of creative expression, and that can definitely be a way to show yourself love, or it's like a form of self-care. Next, we have write or journal. And okay, see, I used to not like this as a form of self-love or self-care for myself, but it was because I always felt like you had to write long sentences or like a freaking Harry Potter book. And I know now that there are so many different ways to write or journal, but what I learned is every journal is different. And I'm a person where I don't like writing sentences. I don't like writing, like having to write like long prompts. I prefer things where I can write in, I can circle, I can bubble. And that's the reason why I personally love the Know Your Power journal, because it's like something you can just use to like put phrases in, something you can like circle. I just think it's very simple, and I don't have a lot of time to journal, so this is something that's quick and easy. But another one that I like, if you want a few options to look at, is the Savage Babe Collection has two. And I actually just bought one of them. And they have two. One is about like manifestation, and one is more about like gratitude. And I bought the gratitude one, and I actually think it came in today. Oh my gosh, I now thinking about it, I think it came in today. I got to look at my email to make sure I got a confirmation code. But I'm really excited to use that one. I think that really just something that gets you reflecting. Like, even if you don't want to use a journal, even if you don't want to like write something like a novel, I think just sharing even just a quick sentence or phrases of a reflection of your day, or something that you anticipate or something you'd hope to happen, or like concentrate on your day, is really helpful. But next we have garden, and I think this is so freaking cute. Like, when I think of different forms of self-care or self-love, gardening is not the first thing I think of. When I think of gardening, I personally think of my grandparents. My grandparents are freaking OGs at gardening. Like, I do not know anyone in my family that are amazing like people with green thumbs like they are. And I'm trying to earn the title of a green thumb, but right now I only have snake plants and like a few succulent plants. And if you know anything about plants, usually succulents and snake plants are pretty resilient. They don't really need that much watering. So I'm not sure if I can really call myself a person that has a green thumb. But you know, I'm trying, because this is still something that I enjoy. I personally do see this as like a form of self-care. And so next that we have, that was like the sixth thing shared on here, was homesteading. And at first when I read this, I had no idea what homesteading was. I'm like, let me go do a quick little Google search. And when I looked it up, it was basically like a self-sufficient lifestyle. Basically, homegrown foods, like living on a farm most likely. And I love this because it was really similar to gardening, but it's really more self-sufficient, raising like farm animals, like raising chickens. And so I think obviously that's a little more work than just gardening. But I thought that was like a wonderful form of self-care. Next, we have, someone actually mentioned therapy, like going to therapy. And I absolutely love this one. So I guess I should preface this. So I personally think everybody should go with a therapist. And specifically, I support it if you can find someone you click with. And personally for me, I would like to have a therapist next time that has a similar upbringing. I had a therapist prior who was absolutely awesome, amazing. Like, I fully support everyone going to therapy. I think personally everyone needs therapy. And if you're a person that thinks you're perfect and you don't need therapy, baby, you need to go to therapy the most. So don't think that you're perfect and you don't need to go. Everyone needs to go. Everyone needs to learn more about themselves. Everyone needs to release that tension and trauma in their body. But as I said, my personal experience with a therapist was amazing, but I feel like there wasn't that full connection. And I don't know if there wasn't that full connection just because we didn't have the same upbringing. So some of the things that were mentioned, I don't think resonated with me. And not to say that you need to agree with everything your therapist suggested, but I think there were just assumptions that were made on my therapist's part that weren't true on what was actually going on with me, just because honestly, that cultural barrier, which is totally fine. No one is perfect, but I do agree that going to therapy is a form of self-love or self-care. I think that just make sure that it is a therapist that you click with and someone that you really connect with. Because I think that will be the most beneficial in getting the most you can from therapy. But next we have bubble baths, which I think is super, super cute. And the last one that was listed that I really liked how this person framed this was that, self-love doesn't have to look soft, but it can be different forms, just like setting boundaries. They said that setting boundaries is a form of self-love. And of course, I agree and know that setting boundaries can be an episode on its own, but I do agree that this is a form of self-respect and self-love. And so I at least still wanted to share with everyone that if you're a person right now where you're learning to set boundaries with everyone and you're kind of hesitant, baby, I support you. Continue doing it, because if it's for your own benefit, if it's for something that's going to help you, if it's going to elevate you, if it's going to push you towards the next step in your life, do it. Doing what you need to do is a form of self-love. And if setting boundaries is something that needs to be done, then do it. I 100% support you. And next we have, I kind of want to share another way that I show my self-love. And I was a little hesitant to share this one because it is one of my favorites, and it's still new to me. And you might laugh, but it works for me. And I still want to share it because, it might work for you. And even if there's just one person that does it and it helps them, that's all I care about. I want to be able to share with the community that I'm slowly creating of different things that I do that makes me feel good, because I want everybody in my community to feel good. And let me take a little water break. But so every morning or every night, or just even during the day when I'm not feeling good, when I feel really down on myself, I look in the mirror. Even if I just woke up, even if I'm ready, or even if I'm going to bed and, I may not be looking the best, but you know what? I take that back. no matter if you're wearing makeup or not, you still look good. Like, we all still look good. So no matter what point you are looking at yourself in the day, look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself. That is what I do. I look in the mirror and I tell myself, I love you. I think of all the physical and non-physical things I love about myself. I literally look in the mirror and say, Marisa, I love you. I love how nice you are. I love how strong you're getting. I love how family-oriented you are. I think that this is also something that really helped me build my confidence. And I know that it's important to surround yourself with people that love you, but you are the number one person who should love yourself the fucking most. You should love yourself more than anyone else does. And I don't care if that sounds cocky. I personally don't think it does, but I know there might be some people that do. But when you're done listing the different things you love about yourself, this is the next part. This is important. This is where people might freak out. But give yourself a physical love. Like literally get your right arm, touch your right shoulder, get your left arm and touch your left shoulder and give yourself a hug. When was the last time that you looked in the mirror and told yourself the different things or the different ways that you loved about yourself? When was the last time you physically gave yourself a hug? The relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have in your life. So take care of it. Tend to it. Tend to the relationship you have with yourself, just like you would with any other relationship. And it's interesting because when I look at the stats of people that listen to this podcast, I do have about like 60 something percent of women, and then like 30 something percent, like 39 or 40% that are identifying as male that listen to this. And I know that this advice might sound a little like girly, but I don't think that the people that are listening to this that identify themselves as male should kind of view this as girly. Self-love is not like a gender identification, or like it's not some sort of gender role that only like a certain person, a certain gender can only do. Like no matter how you identify yourself, you need to tend and care to your relationship. You need to learn how to love yourself. You gotta love yourself, homie. That is literally the title of this episode. And honestly, this can also just be a separate episode. But if you don't know how to love yourself, then you gotta take a step back and learn more about yourself. You need to learn more about yourself so you can figure out how to love yourself. You got to get to know yourself. You got to spend time alone doing that self-work, like journaling, working on bettering your mindset, reading. You got to learn, different forms of like creative expression, maybe like word birding. So like what you like and what you don't like. So that I identify with this, but I don't identify with this. And I think something just like learning a new hobby or even trying out a new hobby is something, it's a different way of learning more about yourself. Like you will never know what you enjoy or what you don't enjoy unless you try it. And honestly, me saying that out loud is advice for myself. I feel like, honestly, I can believe this is hard for me to say. I feel like I do love myself, but there is so much more I can do to learn about myself, to learn more about myself, so I'm able to love myself deeper. This reminds me of feeling, I had imposter syndrome, recording this episode. I felt like I didn't deserve to be here. I didn't deserve to have a podcast. I didn't deserve to call myself a podcaster. I didn't deserve to have an Instagram account for my podcast. I didn't deserve an account from Spotify to post, my podcast. I didn't deserve a podcast from Apple Podcasts to post it. But going through that situation, I learned I need to show myself some more love. I need to show myself some more compassion because I do belong here. And, I think about all the people that are listening that are going through new projects, maybe you're going back to school, maybe you're going back to the gym, maybe you're starting a new job. You do belong there. We are new here. I am new here, but that doesn't take away the value that we can bring. That doesn't take away all our experience and like our love and passion that we can bring. So I belong here, and so do you. But to kind of conclude, there's so many different ways or forms of self-love. So find out what works best for you. Like I said, one of my favorite ways to show self-love is doing nothing or doing nothing I don't want to do, and giving myself a hug and looking in the mirror and telling myself I love myself. And I know when it comes to being able to create a day of doing nothing or only doing what I want to do, I know that I'm very lucky. I know that not everyone can do that, especially mothers. Like, my heart goes out to all the mothers. And even when anytime I see someone that's like pregnant or they just had a baby, or even if you're just a mother in general, I always say you are the closest thing that we have to God on this earth. And you know why? Because you are the closest thing we have to creating life. Like, you are literally a goddess on this earth. So if you don't have or can't find a reason to love yourself, specifically for the females, just remember you're a goddess because you're the closest thing we have to God here on earth, because you create life. And, when it comes to all my men that listen to this, like, you have to think about that one thing, even just that one reason why you love yourself. Like, is it because you're able to live strong? Is it because, you're nice? Is it that you have a kind heart? Is it that you're a person that loves to donate to charities? You're a person that is very helpful. You want to help anyone. Like, we all have to figure out at least one thing that we love about ourselves. And, maybe if you're a person and you're like, you know what, like, I'm sorry, Marisa, like, I can't, like, I'm in a place right now in my life where I can't think of a reason why I love myself, then I think take a step back. And this is where we can go into that form of like physical activity to kind of get ourselves out of that mind space. And if you don't have a lot of time, even just take, 30, 15, even like 60 minutes of just doing nothing, just doing what you want to do, like watch some TV, like journal, even just lay down, meditate, like just do something that is good for you. And like I said, like I recommend this 100%. If you don't even have 15 minutes, you have to at least have 5 seconds to look in the mirror and tell yourself the different things you love about yourself and give yourself a hug. You have to freaking prioritize yourself, even for 5 seconds. You spend the most time with yourself. So do you want that time like that you spend with yourself to be joyful, or do you want it to be just some horrible experience that you hate? I have been there. I have been to a point where I don't want to be here. I hate myself. I hated just waking up. I hated being alive. And I know that like everyone at least has once felt that way. And I'm not judging because I've been there. But I hope that this episode helped you, because this helped me. It gave me a reminder to think about all the things that I'm grateful for, all the things that I love about myself, all the different ways that I can love myself. And I actually feel like I can work on a part 2 because we can go so much deeper and speak about even how doing the hard things is self-love. Even doing the hard things that you don't want to do is a form of loving yourself. So, to end this podcast, the lesson I would say is do not forget to love yourself. Do not forget to prioritize the relationship with yourself because you are the person you spend the most time with. So why not make sure to tend and care to it? To conclude today's episode, let's share some freaking gratitude. Let me know in the Q&A box, email me or DM me 3 things you are grateful for today. To begin, let me see. What am I grateful for today? I'm very grateful that I honestly had a bomb hamstring, small glute workout session with my coach and my brother. I just love being able to introduce people in my family and just people that are close to me into my body building little circle and just show them what I go through in the experience. So I'm really grateful for that. I had to take my dog, as I mentioned earlier, to the vet. Mrs. Bella. She's not married, she's not married, so I can call her Mrs. I'm grateful that I was able to take her to the vet and pay for what is needed to make her feel better. So I'm grateful for that. And lastly, I'm grateful that I'm able to spend time with my family. That's actually what I'm going to do after this. And I'm grateful that that I can see them, that I can hang out with them. And that's something that I'll never take for granted. And I'll probably always list at least once every other week. So grateful for being able to hang out with my family. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I am seriously so grateful for everyone who supports the podcast, who rates and reviews the podcast. I'm so grateful for people who DM me and tell me how much they appreciate the podcast. Because honestly, that's what keeps me going. Of course, I enjoy this and I'm not going to stop just because no one tells me I love your podcast. But it makes me feel good that even if I'm impacting one person through this podcast, I'm going to continue going because that's what I want to do. I just want to be able to help people. I want to, be able to share this great experience that I have with others. I want to make others feel good. So, grateful for all of you as well. But I hope you all have a wonderful week, an abundant week, and I can't wait to chat again next Monday. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This podcast was inspired from my obsession with anime and bodybuilding, so I wanted to create and find a community of like-minded individuals. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. Higher ratings and positive reviews can lead to increased visibility, making it easier for new listeners to discover this podcast. You can also follow the socials in the podcast description notes and DM me, email me with any questions, episode topics, or feedback.